There was a simple rule, you know, that folks used to follow. A rule with a powerful effect. Heat doesn't just disappear randomly, not at all. It escapes in predictable ways. And our grandparents, well, they knew exactly how to stop it. This wasn't superstition. It was survival. Before there were thermostats, electric blankets, or even insulated drywall, staying warm at night wasn't really about comfort. It was about conserving energy, the kind your body just couldn't afford to lose. And honestly, one of the quietest, smartest tricks lived right there in plain sight, where the bed was placed inside the home. The bed, you see, wasn't just furniture. It was insulation. This rule, interestingly enough, existed across continents, climates and centuries. Farmhouses in Europe, timber homes in Asia, early 20th century cottages in North America. Different cultures, sure, but the same logic. Beds were positioned deliberately, not for decoration, not for symmetry, but to slow heat loss when the night turned cold. Let's break down how it worked, why it mattered, and why modern homes quietly forgot it. The secret starts with heat behavior. Heat rises, cold sinks. But more importantly, heat flows toward colder surfaces. In pre-modern homes, walls were thin windows leaked air, and floors pulled warmth straight out of the body. At night, when the fire died down, the bed became the primary heat source. Human bodies, layered with wool and straw, generated just enough warmth to last until morning, if that heat stayed put. Placement decided whether warmth stayed or vanished. The rule was simple but strict. Never place a bed against an exterior wall. Exterior walls were cold sponges. Stone, brick and poorly sealed timber absorbed warmth continuously. A bed pressed against one acted like a radiator, but in reverse. Body heat transferred directly into the wall and disappeared into the night. Grandparents didn't explain this with physics. They explained it with experience. That wall steals the heat. Interior walls shared warmth with other rooms. Exterior walls faced wind, frost and damp air. Sleeping against one meant your body worked all night just to replace lost heat. Over weeks and months, that meant exhaustion, illness and vulnerability, especially for children and the elderly. Bed placement was preventative medicine. Beds were pushed inward, often closer to the centre of the house, sometimes sharing a wall with the kitchen hearth. In many homes, bedrooms weren't upstairs at all. They were placed near the main fire source, even if it meant sacrificing privacy. Warmth came first. Another overlooked rule followed closely behind. Never place the head of the bed beneath a window. Windows were, honestly, the weakest point in any structure. Even if you had shutters, cloth hangings, or oiled paper panes, they always seemed to leak cold air. Sleeping with your head near one meant cold drafts would sweep across your neck and chest, the fastest way, really, to lose body heat during sleep. Night air was dangerous air. Historical records, you know, show higher winter mortality linked not just to the cold weather, but to sleeping conditions themselves. A draft across the upper body could chill the lungs, suppress immune response, and invite infection. So beds were turned sideways. Windows stayed at the feet, or were avoided entirely. Orientation mattered. Now, here's where things get clever. In many early homes, beds were placed along interior corners rather than flat walls. This reduced the exposed surface area. Fewer cold planes meant less heat transfer. Corners, they also trapped warm air pockets created by the body and bedding. The bed became a thermal nest. Heavy bed curtains, often wool or linen, weren't just for privacy, you see. They created a microclimate. When combined with proper placement, they reduced airflow, slowed convection, and locked warmth inside the sleeping space. But even the best curtains failed if the bed was positioned wrong. Curtains without placement were useless. There was also the floor problem. Cold floors drained heat faster than cold walls. Stone, packed earth, or untreated wood acted as massive heat sinks. That's why beds were raised, sometimes shockingly high by modern standards. Height meant warmth. Getting the body off the floor reduced conductive heat loss. Even a foot made a difference. In colder regions, storage chests or straw-filled platforms were built beneath beds, adding insulation and blocking drafts. Again, placement mattered. Beds weren't centered in rooms. They were offset deliberately to avoid airflow paths created by doors and chimneys. Drafts were invisible enemies. Early builders understood airflow intuitively. Cold air entered low, warm air exited high. Beds placed between doorways or beneath loft openings lost heat rapidly. So they were tucked into calm zones, areas where air movement slowed. Still air equals retained heat. You know, this wasn't just guesswork, it was generational testing. If a placement worked, it stayed. If someone woke up cold, coughing, or stiff, well, the bed moved. Trial and error shaped tradition. By the early 20th century, these rules were still common. Even as coal stoves and cast-iron radiators appeared, older families resisted rearranging bedrooms. The habits were ingrained. Then central heating arrived, and the rule quietly died. Once warmth filled the entire house, and, well, placement felt irrelevant. Beds moved to exterior walls just for aesthetics. Windows became, you know, nice views. Drafts were sealed mechanically instead of avoided spatially. The old logic faded, not because it was wrong, but because technology masked the consequences. The knowledge didn't fail. It was forgotten. Yet the physics never changed. Even today, sleeping against an exterior wall in winter increases heat loss. Modern insulation slows it, but, well, it doesn't eliminate it. Your body still pays the price overnight, especially in colder climates or poorly insulated buildings. What makes this rule powerful isn't nostalgia, it's efficiency. Our grandparents used zero electricity to solve a thermal problem modern homes still struggle with. No gadgets, no upgrades, just placement. And here's the deeper lesson. The bed placement rule wasn't about sleeping better, it was about lasting through winter, and that's why it endured. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten systems like this, rules that shape daily survival long before switches and screens, then you're in the right place. Like the video, if this surprised you. Share it with someone who loves hidden history. Subscribe to Before Modern Times for more practical knowledge pulled straight from the past. Because the old ways still have something to teach us. Stay curious and stay warm.